good size 3, but I felt like I wasn't doing any damage on the side turrets.
Yeah, well, so my experience with turrets in this patch was basically just what happened in Xenothreat. So I guess we can go ahead and start the show. And because Sean is in Spain and probably asleep right now, or half asleep, we'll just assume he's not showing up. And if he shows up, great. And if not, well, they're stuck with the two of us. So welcome back to Heroes of Han, everybody listening. This week, I think we're going to talk a little bit about Xenothreat and want to talk
the danger cargo run.
Talk briefly about the thing that everybody's talking about, which is this banning of 600 gold sellers. I guess is a good way to put it. Dupers. And then I had a secret topic at the end. I just want to get some opinions.
Ooh.
So you were talking about, before we started now, starting out with the remote turrets, but basically turrets in general with the gimbaling, the auto gimbaling feature, which I guess is most apparent in the Corsair now, because before you couldn't aim those side turrets beyond 15 degrees off the nose. So anything in front of the ship was basically untouchable.
Yeah, with the Corsair, unless you were the pilot or the remote turret, unless somebody was on the side or just kind of like maybe 5 degrees off the front, those side turrets weren't doing shit.
Yeah. And so like I was saying earlier, like my only experience with the way the turrets work now has been in Xenothreat. So I thought that was a good kind of way to start this off, right? So
I mean, as someone who's like, I'm an absolute atrocious pilot, this also does the same thing on the if you're the pilot, your guns there with gimbal mounts will do the exact same thing, but it's more noticeable on the side turrets and things like that because obviously you're not focusing on not dying.
Yeah, you feel that limited range of motion a lot in that ship.
Mm-hmm.
But what I was noticing is that like with what's it called with the turret, you would tell me like press G and it makes a world of difference. I would hit G and nothing would change. Right, I had no idea what was going on, and I accidentally hit R on my keyboard and it would changed it to some other aim mode or whatever. And then I would hit G.
Oh, you might have to re-keybind
probably. It. Like my keybinds are probably all jacked. But then I would hit G and it would do the auto gimbal. And, I'm chasing ships around in space and whatever. And what I was realizing is that it started just kind of doing it on its own. So it kind of made my life a lot easier. I was just like, I'm just going to listfully move my mouse around. And
it's really easy
for me.
But it's like a 6-year-old with ADD on a cup of coffee. They are all over the place sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes. Well, it depends like what angle stuff is at and how fast it's moving. But it did like a fairly decent job of hitting stuff. Like you're still missing shots, but you could tell you were hitting it at some point, and then eventually, we'd get a kill. So I was pleased with that. Although it did, I guess, if I look at it from a gameplay perspective, it does kind of like cheese it a bit to have this thing do it for you. But all in all, if it wasn't for that, I don't think I would have hit anything with the way the new combat stuff works.
I think with the auto gimbals, it maybe increased it. It gave you maybe a 10% boost of hitting a target compared to before. But this also works out like unless you're on the correct gyro mode and your pilot is giving you call outs of what direction they're moving, this counteracts that. This gives you a little bit more of a chance because if your pilot's not really saying what they're doing, they're just flying all over the place and you're trying to hit a target, these auto gimbals make your life so much easier. It feels like you're actually part of the firefight. Whereas before, it's just like, okay, cool, I was shooting that guy. We're over here now. That's wonderful.
Yeah. There's a point where it was just you're in this slow ship, so you're swinging wildly in a lot of spots, and so you're just losing targeting anyway. So it really helped kind of like reset that too once it was back in the field of view for the gun.
Because realistically, you got to think like some ships, like look at the Hammerhead. The Hammerhead, even though it's a Corvette and it's one of the biggest ships in the game at the moment for combat, it's really kind of a small fighter, the anti-small fighter.
Yeah.
So realistically, when a Corvette comes on, when the Hammerhead comes into battle, it's supposed to kind of fly there, and like each turret's kind of supposed to pick their target and just give suppressing fire and take out these smaller targets. You don't really need to focus like, okay, I'm angling so all of these turrets are shooting this target. I mean, obviously you have to do that at some point if you want to take out the Idris, but the hammerhead should be focusing on like the other targets. So having the auto gimbling where the pilot's just keeping the ship alive, avoiding missiles, firing off their missiles at the other targets. It shouldn't be maneuvering as hard as some people do.
Yeah, well, I mean, it also helps that the hammerhead is a fully crewed hammerhead is essentially covered in turrets, so there's not really any blind spots, you know. But if you're running it with two people or two gunners, it can be a little difficult to make sure that everything's kind of covered.
Yeah, I mean, if you're only running with two people at that point, you're running it just for the gunners to have more guns and the armor of it. But at that point, you need to make a decision like, do you guys want to run both front or do you want to run both guns on one side, and that's the sole side you focus on? Because if that's the case, you can do some damage with a hammerhead with just both guns focusing on one side. But there's plenty of times in past Xenothreats where we had a fully loaded hammerhead where we came in, and I think like at one point I yelled, "Pick your targets," and everyone focused on something else. And at that point, that's where the hammerhead was shining, because we were drawing the attention of all the other ships using the turrets as a point defense fighter.
Which is, you know, what it is, essentially.
But obviously, when you get down to it, when the small fighters are done and you're fighting the Idris, if you angle it right, you can get at least 5 turrets facing that target.
Yeah, you just leave out the butt.
Or the top, depending on which way you look at it, depending on where your shields are.
Or, you know, I guess if you're nose up from the target, being in the butt is pretty good, but typically, you know, the spine is a better shot.
If you're out of forward shields, flip that up, let the butt get some work done, and the side turrets just can still keep firing.
Yeah, and well, so when we played, what was it over the weekend? Saturday, right?
Saturday, yeah.
We started out by doing the cargo, which was weird because it was kind of like there was a parallel mission happening. Because like there was the Idris fight that started after, and the cargo portion that was going on, but they didn't seem connected. Like we started doing the cargo, and then all of a sudden we just didn't need to do it anymore. Like the mission was over. So I'm not.
Well, normally what it is you pick. I remember with Xenothreats in the past, you pick up the cargo, bring it back. You just do that a few times. And then in between, then the Idris shows up to attack the docked javelin.
Yeah, but that phase never started until all the cargo was delivered.
Not always, because I remember there was a few times it popped in, and depending on how much damage the javelin took in between some of the cargo runs, is how well the javelin withstood that final fight where you had 2 Idrises. But this time it's like once a certain point hit with the cargo, because we were the only people running cargo on the server.
Yeah. The way I remember it, and you know, maybe I'm wrong, but the way I remember it is even if the javelin was getting beat to hell, like if you didn't deliver that cargo, it was just going to sit in that dock, and then eventually
you wouldn't progress. And this one, that looks like no matter what, it's still progressing.
Yeah, like it hits a point and they're like, all right, well, now you got to go blow up the Idris, which is okay, I guess, or board it, which like a whole nother thing, because
that you need a full organization to do that, because you're going to have too many people coming in like, oh, I'm going to board it, and all of a sudden your ship gets blown up because someone's like, you were too close.
Well, I mean, that's while we were playing, I was asking that, like, how are we supposed to do this? Like, what's the gameplay methodology for boarding this thing?
You floating around space until I came and picked you up.
Yeah, I mean, I'm angry, right? Because the Idris is so fast. You know, I hopped out like maybe 20 yards from the damn thing, and before I knew it, it was 2 kilometers away. And then I think Sean was like, "Oh, you're supposed to use a bike, essentially like a what's it called, a dragonfly or a pulse, like, or something."
If we showed up with like a Valkyrie with either the pulse or the dragonfly in the back, or just anything, you'd get up on there really quick.
Yeah, I think my fear would be like, because it moves so haphazardly that it's just going to back into me while I'm trying to get into the hangar or something like that.
Yeah, but then you should be close enough to be able to hit it with the tractor beam to hold yourself closer.
I don't know, man. I whipped out the big tractor beam, whatever that thing, the max lift or whatever, and it had no chance of holding on because that ship is so fast. Like, it just took off. And I think if you don't get in the ship, like, you're going to be asking for a ride from somebody, because there's just no way you're going to catch up to it unless it rams you.
I hit that last night, Saturday night, with quite a few Eclipse torpedoes.
Well, yeah. So that's what really, like, I was super worried at first, because in past Xenothreats, like, I mean, the Idris would take a beating, but it wasn't invincible. And it seems like they really buffed the strength of it, but initially I was super nervous about like, well, what if I get on there and like everybody blows it up because they don't know when somebody's boarded it, I imagine. And probably even after the fact, like, if you kill the leader, which I assume is the pilot, you kill them, like the people are still going to shoot at it because they want to blow up in Idris. Like they want to see the big blue, the big explosion and stuff.
But curious if you can get on there, kill the commander, take control of it.
I think you can
hold on to that Idris for the next Xenothreat, and you show up with an Idris.
Yeah, I think you can, because I've seen videos where the title of it is like, we held the Idris for 39 hours or something like that, and like they'll have the Xenothreat Idris, and
but that's probably like, the server's full. The server's completely full of that organization, not like our measly organization.
Oh,
where we can barely man a ship.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, I mean maybe, but still, it is possible, I imagine, to keep that ship as long as. What I imagine is though that it stays an enemy ship, and so people are actively going to shoot at you, essentially.
Yeah. But obviously, if you jump out to another like moon to get it repaired and restocked,
yeah, like I've also
other players
seen
are like, wait,
like, oh, we took it to Area 18.
Some role of this.
Yeah, yes. I mean, if it's not out by the gate, the Stanton Pyro gate, or if it's not by Mike L1, obviously it's somebody took it from Xenothreat.
I was so mad. I got prepared. I got to Mikael 1, moved all my combat ships over there, set my spawn points, set up some gear, and then it goes, oh yeah, the event's taking place at the Pyro Jump Gate. I'm like, son of a bitch.
Yep. See, that's what you get for planning ahead. Never plan ahead with Star Citizen. Just got to deal with it when it happens.
Well, I wanted to get right into the game, get going, not sit around for thumbs up or butt, but we ended up doing that anyway.
Well, that's what always happens. You just have to embrace it. I'm gonna stop the recording right now. We'll restart again. I think we can get Sean in. So let me. All right. So before you magically reappeared on the other side of the world, we were talking about Xenothreat, and I think we'd gotten through kind of what our experience was on Saturday. I don't remember. It's been more than 2 minutes. So Alex, what were we talking about? Do you remember?
We were discussing about how the way the mission works now, it's broken into 2 separate parts, where you can essentially fail the first section of getting the resources to the outpost, but you could still trigger the second part where you need to either destroy the Idris or board and capture the Idris.
So what do you think actually happened there? Did we fail that cargo portion? Is that what happened?
I think
we did not, because we were the only people running.
Like we just ran out of time, and they're like, all right, well, we got to move this along, so go blow the ship up now.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it would have been helpful if it is actually time based, if they had a timer somewhere.
Yeah, like previously, Dooley would get on and freaking nag you, for at least 20 minutes, like, hey, we need more Zeta Polanide, get moving, blah, blah, blah. And it was just, we were in the middle of loading up stuff and taking it there. And all of a sudden it was like, okay, this mission's over. And we had to get the new one, which was weird.
Yeah. It behaved like we failed it, but it didn't. It just said like objective was withdrawn. So it didn't say failed. So, the communication wasn't very clear on their part.
Dooley just yoinked it, and it seemed like we joined the fight already in progress too. It wasn't, and I don't think we were that late, but it seemed like everybody was already all over the Idris by the time we got there, which was interesting.
Yeah, I mean, there were also a lot of fighters, like enemy fighters. So it was pretty difficult to tell who was a player and who wasn't, especially with the targeting and UI changes.
Yeah, I mean, the UI was a total mess because everything's like freaking size 20 font now. And it's just, I guess it's kind of easy to see the Idris because it's got the yellow square on it, which was nice. But knowing who's who and who's going where, and then the targeting changes in general made it really difficult to like affect what felt like effectively attack enemy fighters and stuff.
Yeah, and that the other half of that problem was you couldn't, or at least I could not. I was having real issues targeting fighters that were right in front of me, like that I was looking at, and I had to go through and change the VJoy settings, and even changing that to like target based on where my mouse cursor is. did not work, and I think it's just because the signals are overlapping a shit ton with how large the targeting UI elements are.
Oh, yeah, it's hard to pick which one you're actually pointing at to target.
Yeah, I'm convinced that the since the big scanning box that you're like supposed to use for I think it's precision targeting mode is why they made it like that. But it's just so goddamn big. I think it's overlapping a lot with, you know, whatever target you're actually trying to paint.
I had seen something, I think it was a YouTube video where they were talking about like engagement range, and what it essentially boiled down to is that anything over like 100 meters was essentially out of your range of engagement, even though you could still target and you'd see a pip, like the chances of you hitting it were really low. I wonder if that has the same effect, like the overlapping areas and stuff like that are related to these changes to like engagement range and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I noticed the targeting pip is now like it almost completely goes invisible when when you're not allowed to like shoot at them or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is essentially invisible. And then, you know, if you're like, we were in a Corsair and so we're moving so slow, these fighters would zip by us, and before, you know, you could even really fully acquire them in the sights, like they were already out of range again. So it was
they were
very
more of a
difficult
nuisance than anything. I don't think they ever actually did any like legitimate hull damage because we only ever had one or two attacking at a time.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, with the future engineering gameplay changes, that might change. So, like, I was testing it out the other day in the Arena Commander build, and in its current state, at least, literally all you need is like a single bullet, as far as I can tell. Because there was some dude who rolled up on me. I was testing with some rando. And I was in a A2 and he was in I think it was an Inferno. And granted, it is an Inferno, so maybe the tuning was a little bit like overkill. But he fired like, I think it was 3 rounds into the side of the A2. And granted, it was right on top of the power plant, but he only took out 1 power plant and it basically crippled the ship. Like even though it specifically has the redundancy with, you know, a second power plant and then the hydrogen fuel reactor or whatever, it completely crippled the ship. Like you could not move at all. But also, it is worth noting that after he soft deathed the ship, he could not kill it. He rammed it like 7 or 8 times just to like prove a point, and every time the Inferno would blow up and the A2 would just get sent spinning, but it would not blow up.
So it felt kind of more like what we envision, maybe what eliminating a ship looks like, where it resembles more like a movie where there's time for you to do actions and things to repair or escape, since it's maybe
where it's going to be easy to soft death, but a lot harder to fully destroy.
Yeah. But see, the problem with that is that there's so little information given to you inside of Arena Commander itself. I don't know how much of it was bugs or intended behavior.
Yeah, that's true. And that's a good point. Or if it ever makes its way out of there. If it was intended, maybe it doesn't make its way out of Arena Commander.
Right. And, you know, my main concern was the fact that he fired 3 shots out of, you know, however, it's like, I think it's like 2,800 that the Inferno has. And, you know, basically cripple the ship.
Yeah,
like
I mean,
that didn't seem right.
That honestly seems a little excessive, but more along the lines to how I would expect that engagement to happen. You know, is if you think about the role of the Inferno, it's, you know, cap destroyer, and
for the Inferno it makes sense, but if we had tried the same thing with a Gladius and it did that, I would be very concerned.
Yeah, that's highly suspect right there.
That's something I might actually have to test, because the Gladius does have that size 3 ballistic Gowling on the nose, and if it can do the same thing, then we can at least use that to determine that it is in fact completely broken.
Was when you saw that demo, was there like sub-targeting happening, or does he just know where the power plants are and hit that area of the hull?
Well, I didn't. Well, I mean, when we were testing it, I didn't have an extensive amount of communication with him, other
Oh,
than
okay.
because he had a mic, but I don't know if how much he could actually hear me. So, but he like I said, I got him to fire like a short barrage into where the power plant was, but I don't know if he was sub targeting it or if he just was like guessing where it would be. But I would assume that, especially if you're in an inferno, that would be your strength right there, is sub targeting and kind of sitting a little bit farther back, and just because I know it's not a
Essentially
sniper,
sniping.
but like getting into the Herc's blind spot, which is essentially like right up on its ass, and like on top of it, where the ideally where the butt gun can't really shoot it too well, and then basically rain down on it from above, because that's the one place the Herc doesn't have any guns at all, is on top.
Mm-hmm. So, for I guess to get back to Xeno, I think Alex and I had given some opinion on it, and was just wondering how you felt about it this go round. Because I don't know if you can tell from the title, but we're not super stoked about it, although not terribly disappointed, because it's still essentially Xenothreat, but with the changes and stuff, like, how do you feel about how it's going right now?
I mean, I think that objectively, removing the discussion of the issues with targeting and everything else, I thought it was pretty okay. I like the changes that the most of the volatile cargo is no longer the 8th SCU containers, because that was, as fun as it was to have to worry about precariously stacking them, or just making sure that the blue ones especially didn't touch each other too much and then just explode. It was nice having ones that you could just like snap to the cargo grid relatively quickly. Although it does beg the question as to why they didn't make any of the Zeta Prolinide able to do that. But
Yeah.
I don't know if that was a time constraint on their part, or
I would think so.
Probably because they didn't change anything on it.
Well, they're stored in those special little containers that starts the timer, essentially. So maybe that was the hiccup, was like, well, we'd have to design the container too, so we'll do that later,
Yeah, that might be the case.
But they did. I feel like, I don't know, because it looked like they had significantly reduced the amount of Zeta Prolinide that was on the ship. Also, it didn't feel as tedious.
Blew up,
maybe,
honestly.
I know for sure,
because I saw an explosion from that hangar bay not too long into your exploit.
Those happened like in front of me. Like, I watched them explode. But there was some racks behind me that were empty. If I recall correctly, they were empty the whole time. So there was like, I guess you have those twin stairways on either side of that cargo area. So the one that looks to, if you're looking at the door, the left, the one to the left, all of those there were empty as far as I remember. So it was really just the right side that had some. And as I was getting them out, there was like an explosion of one of the racks that just took out like a whole rack's worth of them.
Yeah, I can't remember if it was like an enemy missile that exploded on the outside of the ship or something that set them off, or what it was.
I have no idea. It just kind of happened.
I'll remember I was moving boxes and then I got knocked over from an explosion.
That tracks. But yeah, so along those lines, I did enjoy that too. I like that it feels much less tedious to move cargo, because while it was a lot of fun to like get the hammerhead and throw, box after box to the docking collar in the front of it. And I remember we have that video of one time we stacked them all up in front of the pilot door, and I guess the jostling made them all explode and killed us all.
Yeah, and I think part of the problem, Mike, was one of the blue ones, the jostling ones, like fell through the floor and into the cockpit next to my feet.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, in the recording, I have you going, "What's that banging noise? What's going on?" And then boom.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what happened. So that was a lot of fun, but it did feel a little tedious to have to load 80 boxes and while under fire and do it 5 times. I think that was 5
Yeah, or more, and that
ships,
was
or
with other players
that was with
helping.
other players.
That was the other problem with this event, is with the cargo portion specifically, is everybody just wanted to do the dogfighting, and I can't really blame them, because there's, especially with how grindy the bounty hunter missions are now, like and just the mercenary mission track in general, like it's really hard to get a good dogfight going, unless you want to participate in the whole reputation grind. And I'm just really not interested in doing the reputation grind before Pyro, because I know it's going to get wiped anyway.
Yep.
So, I'm like, I don't want to sit here and do 950 missions to get max rep just so I can try out some of the new mission sets. Like, I don't have time for this, dude. And it's, it's not like, what's a good example? It's not like a new ship where, you can just buy a new ship to test it out for a new patch or whatever, like melt a couple things and, convert some store credit and test out the new ship. No, it's not like that. It's not, they put these missions behind this rep, and it is, in my opinion, like, if the game was released, and, there were no more wipes, I could understand locking the high tier bounties behind, 950 missions. Is it still excessive, in my opinion? Yes, but I could at least understand it, because if it's like supposed to be end game content, then that makes sense, right? Now, but with the current way that things are, and the fact that they keep wiping rep and, money and whatever else, it just doesn't make any sense to me. Like, the max amount of missions that it should take to get you to, I don't know, the highest amount of rep in the Bounty Hunter Guild, for example, it should realistically be no more than like 80 at the absolute maximum, maybe 100 if they're really pushing it.
Yeah, I guess I also kind of depends what that end game gameplay is, because I mean, if it was really worth it, it could be worth it,
Yeah, but with them also decreasing the payouts of missions, it just makes it even less worth it, dude. It's like it's like they're trying to shoehorn you into, relying only on salvage, which or mining, which isn't what it should be, because they're basically just saying like, hey, all of you guys who want to do bounty hunting, well, fuck you, you know what I mean?
Yeah, eventually it's going to get to the point where some of these missions where the payout's not even worth it, just because you're going to spend more on refueling and everything.
Yeah, because they'll send you, especially for the certification missions where you have to pay to get certified, like you fly halfway across the solar system, and they're like, hey, you paid 25K to get this bounty cert, and then you only get paid like 10K now, and it's, so you've lost 15. Like,
yeah, I've always hated that initial bounty cert. It's just such a pain in the ass, because it's always
the cert itself, and then the fact that you'd have to do another normal bounty hunter mission on top of that just to recoup your losses from having paid for the cert.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's still the case, but I believe previously that cert was quite often, if not always, a player bounty too, which made it even harder, especially if you're struggling financially to like.
For the suspect apprehension, yes. For the normal ones, no. But I don't know if I don't think that's changed. But I also could be wrong, because I don't know. I've been over to Crusader several times, which is one of the only places that you can get the North Rock like group bounties to pop up, which are a little bit more fun in my opinion, because there's more ships to fight. But I went to Crusader several times in 323, and I could not get that mission to pop up at all. So I don't know if it was like I didn't have high enough rep. They never really made any like forum posts or anything that I could find that explained the changes they made to the reputation system when they added in, working for Grey Cat, or, basically all the additional reputation that you had to get to more nuanced bounty hunting missions involving, like the underground industrial facilities. Because I know that they had to do like some rebalance of sorts in order to fit them in like the current bounty hunter profession like growth arc, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I guess along those same lines, it feels like the mission giver it's always empty. There's like, it feels like there's a lot of missions missing, and it's not that they're popping and someone's grabbing them first. It's just they just never show up. Even these priority missions for Xeno are like some people get them and some people don't, or they pop late or something like that. So there's this weird kind of thing happening with missions in general. I wonder if that's something to do with it also.
I remember back in the day, missions used to pop up all the time.
Yeah, it was like a constant, like almost annoying level of little notification bubbles popping up.
Yeah, and that's another thing too, is like I don't even know if it's like it's gotten to a point where I don't even know if those like combat assistance beacons even exist anymore, because I have never seen one.
I've seen 0 in this patch for sure, maybe even also last patch.
Yeah,
It's been a hot minute since I've seen them.
Yeah, and actually on this one too, maybe it's because Xenothreat's on, but Wake of Disaster doesn't show up. And if I remember correctly, I haven't seen the Money for Nothing one either show up.
I've seen Wake Up Disaster, Money for Nothing, but I still get a lot of We Need to Talk.
Oh, I do get the We Need to Talks
from Charles Eckhart or whatever.
Yeah, I think it's Eckhart. Yeah, that one quickly ignored. And just, I don't know. It's always when I'm in Hurston and it's like going all the way to Crusader to deal with it, right? That's that guy.
Yeah.
I think that's the mission that leads you to fighting the Idris at the end.
I think so. Which the only time I think or for me anyway, but I'm pretty sure both of you were there, but the only time we've done it was in earnest was the one time we got there and somebody else showed up and blew it up before we had a chance to, so we failed the mission.
I think there was also
there was another time I remember us coming in a Hammerhead, fully crewed. We were flying down and we just took the railgun straight to the face.
I think there was another time when we were playing with Jackal, and he doesn't get on super regularly anymore, but I don't even think that's his in-game username. Anyway, it doesn't matter. He was there, but we came in and for some reason the marker for the Idris was inside under the ground at a UGF, like one of the small generic bunkers, and the ship just didn't show up on scanners. So it was like we did all this prep work and we were ready to fight this thing, and then it was just under the ground.
That's crazy. It's just
something.
Mystery marker under the ground.
Yeah, because we couldn't even target the ship or anything. I don't remember if you were there for that one, Mike, or
doesn't sound familiar.
I think we had crewed up in like a Connie or something
for the Idris.
Yeah, I don't know.
Definitely not me.
I don't remember. This one was a little longer ago, but it's still even the point being that even for the bounty hunting trade, even the Eckhart missions can be kind of unreliable sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know. Did anyone else have any other thoughts on Xeno before we move on?
No, but like you said earlier, you felt like the Idris was beefed up, and I get why, because they wanted you to try and board it and kill the leader. Mm-hmm. And obviously they're gonna beef up the Idris because they don't want someone to try and board and 2 seconds later it takes a torpedo and blows up.
Yeah, that's what I was afraid of, was like how long it takes to do anything in this game, getting on and having to fight your way through everybody, and at some point before you get it done, like the ship blows up. So that really made me kind of balk at first to like attempting it, and then finally getting around to attempting it, and it was just a complete and utter failure because the strategy sucked, which was like the way we used to board it was like hop out and try and catch a ride on it,
through the airlock door. Yeah,
but basically that doesn't work anymore.
I don't want to think about that night.
Oh man, yeah. So that was fun. What was it, like 3 hours of us waiting in the airlock for Sean to show up?
3 hours of me just sitting in an airlock while Sean is like, no, I got this. No, I got this. No, I got this.
Good, dude. Emerging gameplay.
And then I called for the pickup, and that guy immediately goes in the chat and goes, wait a second, you're on it. No, I'm not coming to you.
Yeah, I love how those scenarios always turn into just basically us baiting people into things that'll get them killed.
Hey, we don't go out looking for trouble. We just set things up and invite people into it.
Yeah, I mean, that's how it works, right?
And trap is such a harsh word.
That's the whole point.
Isn't that the emergent gameplay that they always talk about? They're like, you get into funny situations. I mean, we even had we even had, I mean, that's how we met Dave. Like, if you remember, he had his Starfarer wide open, and I think, Mike, I think it was you, me, and Jackal.
Yeah, Jackal.
Jackal was there for that one. But
it wasn't even open. It's just a built-in security problem with the Starfarer, where if you can float to that back ladder and climb up, you can essentially just open the door on it and go inside.
Yeah, or you mean the catwalk? Yeah, if you get onto the catwalk, you can just walk in. You're good to go. That ship is in a desperate need of a rework. But even if he had taken off, we could have just waited until he had taken off and then shot the door open anyway. But the point was like, we were doing the emergent gameplay, but it wasn't even to kill him. Like, I think didn't I decide to get in the pilot seat and like take it on a joyride or something?
Yeah, we flew around with him for a while.
Yeah, and he was like, he said he when we finally got him on the call later, he was like, dude, my ass cheeks were clenched when you were flying around like that, because he had just filled it up with fuel or something.
It was full of fuel. He was trying to go out and start selling fuels, kind of like early into the whole refueling gameplay.
Yeah, before everyone realized it was useless.
Yeah, and I think on VC we were like, oh, look at all this fuel, we should dump it into space.
And I think we didn't even do anything. No, because we ended up just, because he was chill about it, and we ended up just like landing back and
yeah, I think
we were like, I think I told him in the exact words, I was like, hey, buddy, just a little piece of advice, don't leave your ship open next time. And he just burst out laughing.
Yeah, I think that's some advice for anybody that might encounter people like us, players like us, or us in general. Is just the quickest way to like shut us down is to just be amicable and like just go along with it and be chill, and it's not fun anymore. So we just like, all right, here's your shit back.
Not so much it's not fun. It's just like, all right, well, cool, we're kidnapping you and you're going along with the ride for now.
Yeah, but he was cool.
Like, we're gonna cause trouble, and we're using your ship to do it.
Well, if you think about the other time with that hammerhead we kept stealing and that other player we kept killing, we're just doing it because he was getting so mad about it.
Yeah, like unnecessarily mad.
He lost like 20 million credits that night putting bounties on us.
Yeah, but he kept coming. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, we had, I think at some point we were kind of getting bored of it, but he just kept coming to attack us.
Yeah, and if you remember, Mike, the entire reason we did it anyway was because he was asking for gunners on his hammerhead to do missions, and we were like, all right, let's.
That's right.
Yeah, we were like, all right, we're bored, like there's nothing better to do. Like, let's go gun for this guy, I guess. And then he started, and you're right, Alex. And then he started having this fucking attitude, and he was like shouting at people, and we didn't want to get on Discord. So I remember, I think I had told you, I was like, let's just pretend we don't know what Discord is. We're like, what's Discord?
Discord. Never heard of
Discord. Then I remember, him saying, if you get on Discord, I'm going to, kick you from the party. I'm going to shoot you. And then I'm like, nope, pop.
Yeah. And then I remembered, I think we were in the middle of fighting. It was one back when they still had the cool combat encounters that just had like a shit ton of ships. And Mike, you were in the top. Yeah, you were in the top gunner seat, and I think I was on like the left one or something. And we were in the middle of the fight, and I remembered thinking to myself, I was like, wait a minute, because we were like, this guy's a dick. Like, what could we do to like stop him from having fun without getting in trouble? And then I remembered that the engineering console had the ability to turn off the entire ship, irrespective of what the pilot was doing. And so, I quickly like got out of my seat, and I'm running down the hallway. Like, my character's like in the hall, and I get to the engineering console, and I'm just like, pew, and the whole ship shuts down just while he was flying at a reclaimer, and we just careen headfirst into it, and the whole thing blows up. And he was like, what happened? Afterwards, he's like, what happened?
The ship just shut down. I don't know what happened.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Good times. Miss those. I think that pretty much wraps up Xeno. And then we got a little bit off topic there with some recollection of adventure. The other topic I kind of want to talk about is the thing that everybody's talking about essentially, and I don't want to like beat a dead horse, but the 600 dupers that were quote unquote suspended, essentially a ban on the thing. So I don't really want to talk too much about like the act itself, but more how you feel about the actions taken. As I know that we've talked a little bit about this in Discord, but I was saying that like I really don't see the point in punishing them like this in alpha, you know, because ultimately
if the game was in full release, I get it.
yeah.
But everything gets wiped so often anyway. Like when 4.0 comes out, it's going to be a full wipe. We know that for a fact. So them duping everything now doesn't mean anything come fall.
Yeah,
Yeah.
see. I also think, and I don't intend to cut you off, Mike, but it's just so pointless to punish them because it's not like they're using an exploit to get wall hacks or something, you know. Yeah, it's breaking the economy and it's ruining their data, but it's, you know, this problem is something that CIG created themselves. So punishing players for, you know, taking advantage of their mistake, you know, something that they could have easily fixed with a quick hot fix, but they chose to sit on it and wait. It's kind of their own fault. And, you know, I don't want to play devil's advocate here because I don't like cheating and duping and all that stuff. Like, we don't really do that, but I also understand like the why. And, you know, I don't want to get too into the why, but I understand it. It's like, you know, the game is so grindy with all these payment changes that they made to missions, and then the reputation grind. You know, I can't really fault them after, you know, CIG went out of their way to quadruple the price of ships, you know?
Yeah, it's like a perfect storm of like inflation, in-game inflation, I get essentially coupled with a total wipe. So clean slate, and then having the opportunity to create wealth for whatever reason. But ultimately, like I was saying, I don't see the point in punishing them this way. Like maybe yoink their cash, or in addition to fixing it or something. But or maybe if there was some way they knew, like if they had acquired ships with it, like maybe yoinking the ships too. But like,
or give them a hard wipe.
or just give them a hard wipe. But yeah, this is ultimately just a wet fart, really, because it's like they're suspended, but they're essentially, when there's a wipe anyway, they're in the same spot if they just create an alt account or something. Like it didn't really even punish them that much. I just don't see the point in doing it in this phase of the game. But like Alex was saying, like if this was closer to being an actual release or something, or the economy itself is in a place where the stability is important, then, you know, definitely finding a more harsh and more effective way of dealing with it. But with the state of things right now, it's just ultimately pointless. Like,
I mean, if I was a duper and I had, you know, hours worth of work just taken away from me and not actually being suspended from the game, I think I would have stopped playing. Like if I had been one of those people.
Essentially the same effect, right? It's just like, well, here's all the stuff that you got gone. Like it would be the same effect, right?
Yeah, I mean, and it would have been even more effective if they had just taken all of their money instead of, you know, just what they duped.
Yeah, I mean, that would definitely be more effective, but I can see like maybe there's an ethical line where, okay, well, they did get this portion illicitly, but not this portion. So it would seem unfair to take it all, but really, since they can't even access their account.
Was it a temporary ban or was it a hard ban?
No, it's a suspension.
It's a temporary suspension. Yeah, it's 3 months, which will push them in probably into 4.0 anyway. So they're going to come back to the same place.
A hard wipe.
Yeah. So
yeah, I thought that was rather convenient on their part, that they only suspended them long enough so that they would be unsuspended right around when 4.0 comes out, so that, you know, so that they can sell them more ships and stuff.
Well, there's like two other questions related to that though. Is like, if you were doing something potentially bannable, right? Like duping, like you're in this activity to.
I don't know if duping is potentially bannable. We know pad ramming is bannable. Like pad ramming in an armistice zone.
Yeah, well, I mean, I said potentially, right? Because you're doing something, and clearly it is, at least in this case, a bannable offense, right? What are the odds that you would do that with your real account. Like, wouldn't you create a dupe account and do it with that, knowing that there's a chance you could get banned, and just like, wipe your hands of it and go back to your actual account when it happened, which probably
Right.
has a ton of money you sent to it.
Yeah, I mean, who's to say that they didn't do this? And it's like, I feel like it's impossible for them to monitor all of these transactions too, because, you can send any amount of money to any friend in game or any random person. Like they could, like, let's say, for example, I don't know, let's say some duper used an alt account and made 500 million credits, and they just gave it away to random accounts. If they had a flagging system, all of those random people would suddenly be flagged for co-conspiring in duping or whatever. You see, and you can see where the problem arises is because it's not like they can just send it to any one person; they can send it to anybody. So you can't, and you can't make an accusation based off of that because it could have been a random person, who had nothing to do with it.
Yeah, and then where does it end? So like if in this scenario, like a duper sent one of us a significant amount of money, and then we sent a significant amount of that to somebody else, how far down that chain does it go? How many people are going to be affected by that? So I can see why.
I mean, unless they've got the serial number for each individual credit, it's impossible to track.
Well, so like some of the justifications that they give for these wipes is like, at least in the past, was like, well, we can't track, like our ledger doesn't have the precision for us to be able to do these specific notions. Like how accurate is it even now that they're able to realistically do that level of tracking for where money goes and where it comes from? Like I question that too. It's got to be more like a timestamp thing. Like they logged on first at this point, then at this day and time, they received a significant amount within this 2-hour period or whatever. Like they did some kind of algorithm to figure it out. But, I think that's why a lot of people who benefited from duping, or maybe did a light amount of duping, kind of were spared because they don't have the ability to really track that kind of stuff, and may never have the ability to.
They might have been able to figure it out by correlating who claimed Hercules Starlifters, like filing an insurance claim, and like how many times they did it, and how much money they made within the span of how many times they claimed the Starlifter. So I think it's all time based. I agree with you on that. I think they're only able to track these event logs in a linear time scale, and I don't think it has anything to do with like a credit amount transfer. Because, like I said before, if they were to base it solely off of that, then literally anybody could be implicated completely by accident just because somebody sent them a lot of money.
Right. Yeah, it's like a very base level amount of forensic accounting. Essentially, is like, X player duped Hercules X number of times in this time period. Any money gained throughout that time period must be illicitly gotten. It's a very basic way of tracking it and dealing with it.
And there's definitely room for error too, because like, let's say, and I'll come up with a hypothetical here, like let's say somebody is part of an org, and I don't know, let's say it's a mining org, and they're like the cargo transporter for that mining org, but they learn about the duping. And, having lost all their money in the wipe, let's say they decide to start doing duping with the C2 or the Caterpillar or whatever it is that they have. I could see there potentially being an issue where they do the duping and then they go and play the game normally and like deliver cargo for their org or whatever, like whether it be Quantanium or whatever it is that they've mined. And then in both instances, they get paid a large sum of money. So like, how does CIG know if they went from duping to playing the game normally to duping again, or just continuing to play the game normally? Like, how do they know where that money stream begins and ends in regards to what was legitimate and what wasn't? I'm just further going off of what you said with how it's inaccurate to track it the way that they most likely have been.
Yeah, and I imagine that they probably were on the cautious side. So I would easily venture a guess that there's well over 600 people that should have been banned but weren't, or suspended but weren't. These were probably just the most egregious and obvious offenders. And that also kind of supports, at least for me, the idea that like, maybe it's just me, but I would have created a second account to do all that stuff and, you know, not risk my actual account to do it.
I mean, I couldn't even be bothered to do it in general, dude. Because
it's also a ton
I just
of
don't
work.
have the time. Like it's a ton of time and it's a ton of effort. It's one of those things that it's like I feel like especially in regards to the bans themselves, or not the bans, the suspensions themselves, and less to do with the why. Like, is it really a punishment for it to suspend them? Because again, it's their own fault that the exploit existed in the first place. That's the first thing. And the second thing is it still took a ton of time to do it. Like, I'm wondering if the suspension was less related to the offense itself and more related to the degradation in server performance that these people caused by duping.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I would say in addition to that, and it's something that we talked about last week, was essentially that it did put a huge damper on legitimate gameplay. That also probably led into the decision a bit too, was the fact that, like we were saying, you know, cargo was essentially ruined by it. You just didn't have the ability to sell anything of any significant value. And then, like you said, server performance was an issue. I mean, floating into Lorville and seeing, you know, the tops of the buildings just covered in Hercules, and there was clearly a hit to the performance of the area.
Dude, I remember I flew into our corp to grab some like armor or something that I had been looking for, and there was just like a pile of caterpillars like stacked almost nose to nose. So like it was like a skyscraper of caterpillars, and I was like, somebody must have had a long enough claim timer in between each session that they were like, you know what, let's just stack these caterpillars end to end, you know.
Some installation art to pass the time. Yeah, and like the reality is the people who are duping are more than likely people who are trying to earn an income from it. And so what's the reality that they are even actually players? You know, at the very least, they're backers for the minimum, and then likely some organization fronted them enough to get whatever vehicles they needed to be able to do it. But ultimately, like, do they really care that they're not able to play anymore? I would say probably not. So that also kind of falls into the same category of like, is this punishment really effective, let alone warranted at this stage?
I also saw that apparently that's how the accounts that, you know, the accounts that advertise like
Spammers.
credits on like shady websites, like it's not even, you know, it's not even like, I don't know, like an actual website. They're like, oh, go to whatever dot space and we sell cheap AUEC. And I know from some of the articles that I was reading, or I guess they're forum posts that I was reading from CIG, that those guys apparently use like free fly accounts that they've hacked, or free fly accounts that they made themselves, or they will just bite the bullet and get a $40 package as the cost of doing business in order to get in and do this stuff. But I still find it like strange that they don't go after those people more than the people who are just duping to dupe. And I guess to some extent it is hard to determine who might have been who, but it's at the same time it's like I don't know if their reaction was proportionate to the amount of damage that they were doing.
Like, just in general, I guess, well, maybe not in general, but speaking towards the experience of quote unquote legitimate players.
Yeah, I mean, because if it was legitimate players, like people who are legitimately playing normally, I don't really care as much. If it was like people who are doing it to sell credits, yeah, that's a little bit more dubious and worth, you know, account suspension over. But as I said before, you know, those people are, you know, if they're able to make, I don't know, let's say $1,000 by selling credits on, you know, whatever bougie website they're using, they might be willing to eat $500 for a Caterpillar, if it
That's
means
true.
they can still make
If
500
you're still
whatever in
netting
profit.
another 500 at least or something, it would be worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
but
mean,
then
I
that
don't
also
know.
means
I
every
don't
time
I
we do
don't
a hard
pretend to
wipe,
know
you
these
still have
people
your big
because I
cargo
don't have
ship.
enough money to fucking throw around like like that. So, I can't pretend to know how these people think, but some of them might be ludicrous enough to just say like, "Hey, man, for like, let's go and
Yeah.
throw." Like I don't even know.
Well, there could exist also like this, to make it kind of a real world analogy. This could be some organized crime ring where they have outside money. Maybe they've done this in other games or whatever, so they saw an opportunity here, and we're like, okay, we're going to put X dollars in to get this stuff, and they have a measured return that they're expecting, so they are willing to front that money.
Yeah, it's possible.
But like you said, ultimately, disproportionate, potentially maybe even unwarranted or ineffective. I think that's a good place to kind of leave this one. I don't see I saw a lot of people celebrating it and stuff, and I just kind of thought, like, I took a step back and thought, like, I don't even really know if this is something that we should celebrate, because it kind of sets a weird precedent, but also it's just not that big a deal, not as big a deal as a lot of people have made it out to be. And also the schadenfreude of it all was kind of like, oh, these people ruined my gameplay and now I'm happy that they can't play. But the reality is I don't really know if they were even that strongly affected by it.
Yeah, like I mean, the landing zones definitely suffered in performance, but beyond that, I don't really know. Like, there's no discernible way for me to know how much impact the dupers actually had on my gameplay experience. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I mean, they're not doing it now, and the server FPS is still in the 5 range, so I don't really know if it had that big of an impact anyway.
Yeah, that's also a good point. Like,
So there was I was thinking about this yesterday, and I wanted to see if we could talk about, aside from a ship's maybe combat prowess or agility or anything like that, or maybe less so those characteristics of it. I was trying to think of what ship I actually just really like, and so I was curious to get you guys' opinions on a ship that you just find, I guess, absolutely enamoring. Maybe what your favorite ship is, independent,
like our guilty pleasure.
Yeah, I guess independent of how well it actually plays or something. If you just have this one ship that you love, but maybe you don't even have the opportunity to use it because the gameplay loop doesn't exist or something like that.
Alex, you sounded like you wanted to say something.
Yeah, he's super excited.
Well, it's like I can't say anything about the Perseus yet, just because it's not out yet. But I do have that pledged. But like in game right now, the MSR. At first I didn't like it, but it then slowly started growing on me. I kind of like the looks of it, the layout. I think it's a useful ship, but it doesn't have a great cargo area, so it kind of lacks there. But we don't have data running, so that whole hacking terminal that it has on there is useless right now. But I think that's a ship, like if we were playing the game long term, like 3 of us, we could live on that ship comfortably.
It has a homey feel. Like early when I started playing early on, the MSR was my favorite ship. I loved it, and for a long time I didn't even notice that it has like 1,000 doors to get to the pilot seat.
Yeah.
It was a good
until
few
the
months
rose-tinted glasses came off,
right? Yeah, and then that happened. But you have this. You're enamored by the unscannable cargo area and the little secret tunnels underneath that aren't really secret at all.
I did not know about those secret tunnels till I watched some random YouTube video.
Oh no, totally. Like I was flying around that thing for weeks before I was like, wait, what? So that was a nice surprise that kind of kept that feeling going a little longer, just knowing that there's this whole underbelly portion that you can utilize was nice. I do also really like the MSR, and I wish that life with an MSR wasn't so painful. Because early on, I felt like it was a tank. I felt like it could really take a beating, and it was super fast, and it was
It
big enough.
It used to be an absolute unit, and then with all the adjustments and changes they've made, they've brought it more in line with stuff of its size class. So the hull HP has been reduced significantly. And I know you said we wouldn't talk about stats, but I mean that's generally what's happened to that ship. Is Yogi and his balancing team basically took it and just buried it in the dirt.
Yeah, thanks, Yogi. Thanks for ruining the Millennium Falcon of Star
It's like
Citizen.
I know I'm a big
I don't know
RSI
why they
fan.
even did that, because the ship is super weak in general. Offensively, it is terrible.
It has a pea shooter.
It has 8 missiles, 8 size 2s, and or you get 16 size 1, or I don't even know if it is 8 size 2s. I think it might even be 4 or some shit.
6, isn't it?
It's terrible.
6 size 2s.
But then the pilot gets pea shooters, the turrets are pea shooters. It's like you're the only thing you're going to be able to fight off is fighters. Anything that isn't like a light or medium fighter, you're screwed, dude. Don't even try.
Yeah, it is just such a cool ship though, and I like seeing new people get it, seeing their excitement for it. Kind of brings back a little bit of that excitement too.
Dave, when he got one, he was super enamored by it.
Oh yeah, he had that black paint on it, the black and yellow paint. He was super stoked.
Yeah,
it's like I said, I know I'm an RSI fanboy because most of my ships I have pledged are RSI ships. I love the Valkyrie. I think that's a great cargo combat ship, even though it's classified as a drop ship. And then I wish we always had enough people to run it, but the Carrack, I think that's a ship I could, if I want to do immersive gameplay, that's a ship that I could live on if I had enough people to run it.
I just think it's funny that you said RSI is your favorite and then proceeded to name 2 Anvil ships.
Well, that's because it's I don't want to, the ships that I have for RSI are pledged are not out yet. And then all the other ships, I feel like the Connies are too practical right now. They're overall good.
They're not very homey.
They don't really
none
have
of the
their
Connies
niche.
are really homey.
That's
even the
Phoenix,
the front half of the Phoenix it's just it's so cold and barren, and it doesn't feel inviting at all.
Yeah, strictly utilitarian in front. Having said that, though, the Connies are still
match
goated.
RSI's aesthetic.
No, and they're old too. They haven't really benefited from the more recent sort of ship design, ship aesthetic stuff, but they don't really match any of the newer RSI things a whole lot, besides maybe the shape of the nose, and maybe little bits here and there that kind of harken back to the Connie's design, but really they still kind of stick out like a sore thumb.
But with the Andromeda, when you switch the missiles and those wings fold out with the size 1s, and then the 4 missile pods and the roof pop up, it's appealing.
Yeah, I mean, the Connie was my first, so I pledged a Mustang initially, and I played for, I don't know, a couple of hours, and then immediately upgraded to the Connie, to the Andromeda, and it was just amazing. The size of it, the fact that you basically get 2 ships for the price of 1, because, the Ursa, you have to do a lot of work to get in there, and being a new player, I didn't really understand what was going on, but it was cool to be able to go in the back and hop in the what's the name of this?
The Pisces, or no? What the fuck am I talking about?
The Merlin. Yeah, being able to hop in the Merlin and tool around, and they had just kind of fixed the docking and undocking for it, so I kind of came in at the right time to really enjoy that. Was a good time. I really enjoy the Andromeda back then, and I still enjoy it now. And I don't know if you all heard me, but I was saying that the Connies in general are pretty goated. They have great hull HP, they have great damage, they're very usable, and they will,
except the Aquila.
Well, so the Aquila hits a weird area because they kind of take away a lot of what
my
makes them
only thing
great.
is if they did the Taurus, they swapped that. If they put the guns back up top and do the radar on the bottom, I think it'll be more beneficial.
Yeah, I agree with that too.
It was a weird way to balance it, I guess, against the other Connies that just kind of made it a little too unbalanced.
The turrets in the Connie in general are really weird, especially the bottom one, because it's supposed to be, you can tell from the orientation of the turret that the gunner would have a much better firing field of view if they had just flipped the bottom seat upside down.
Yeah, if you get into the seat, you go full inverted.
Yeah, either it rotates you or the turret itself was designed to be face up, but on the bottom.
But they literally just took the asset of the top turret and put it on the bottom, and then left the seat upright. So the gunning experience in the bottom turret is just terrible. It works fine for the tractor beam on the Taurus, that. I won't even argue with that. That's whatever. But for a gunner, it's awful.
Well, so you look at the Aquila, and the intended gameplay is exploration, right? It's their exploration ship, even though it's not really all that different from the other ones, if you don't count removing of weapons, essentially. But the scanning, at least when I think of exploration, I think of going to locations and scanning like the surface of planets
or scanning in front of the ship,
or scanning in front, yeah. And
that's
having
the
it
whole
on the
thing
top.
with the Herald. The Herald has that scanner. Well, if you remember the original concept art for the Herald, it had the scanner facing forward on the side of the ship. It was like a big radar dish, and it's almost the same thing with the radar dish on the MSR.
The MSR,
it pops up and it faces forward.
Yeah, so it's kind of weird that they chose to put the Aquila scanner on the top, but make it basically up facing. So it seems like it really should just be on the bottom too, and that would tie more in line with how the ships themselves work. Like the tractor beam being on the bottom makes sense because the cargo bay is on the bottom. Maybe the scanner makes more sense on the bottom since without knowing actual exploration gameplay, like I would think that scanning things below you would be more what's going to happen rather than above you.
Yeah, I mean, and the orientation in space doesn't even matter anyway because you can just roll the ship.
You just roll.
Yeah, but let's say you're in atmosphere, you're trying to scan kind of like a canyon. It's useless with the scanner on top.
Exactly.
Unless you're scanning like way in front of you or something to get that angle
but
right.
It's like let's say because what I think the Aquila could potentially be used for is like, let's say Pyro comes out, right? You get a rock mining rover and an Aquila, and you're there trying to scan to find, like, I don't know, like you could be like, maybe your primary focus is exploration, but you're like, you want to make some money, a little bit of money on the side, just collecting gems or whatever using the rover. You would need to be able to scan down at the planet. Like me, again, coming from an engineering background, I'll point out that sonar and radar mounted on both planes and submarines and boats is all underneath it. And I feel like with planes, that's an especially important point to make, is that the radar is mounted in the nose, and it can also see up, but it's mainly focused on either what's around the plane or what's beneath the plane.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's really relevant in spaceship design too, because I would assume that unless the radar dish has a specific location on the ship, its main focus is going to want to be like either seeing what's around it or seeing like what's in front of it at a downward angle, because there is a lot of atmospheric flight to take into consideration.
Yeah,
because these spaceships are also effectively being used as airplanes. Like I don't know if CHE ever plans to add airplanes, like specifically airplanes to this game. I mean, it's something that could definitely monetize to like War Thunder players or some shit. They're like, hey, you can have this knockoff Spitfire and fly it in Star Citizen, and it's like $80. Like, go crazy, dude. But they could definitely do that if they wanted to, but these, for all intents and purposes, as far as I can tell, the spaceships in the Star Citizen universe have effectively replaced all air transit. So, yeah.
So we've identified now that Alex loves RSI, but never names any RSI ships.
Well, because like I said, I don't know how the Perseus is going to fly. I don't know how the Galaxy is going to be. I mean, I've got the Zeus MR pledged.
I like the Scorpius a lot.
Those are the big three ships I'm looking for, and I'm holding off my judgment right now. I mean, we all know what the absolute best ship in the game is. There's no hands down. We can't argue.
Yeah, the Pisces.
Yeah, Pisces. You're not going to beat the Pisces.
I heard Sean say he loves the Scorpius.
Yeah, I mean, like, no, the Pisces, nothing can beat the Pisces, but objectively speaking, I really enjoy the Scorpius. It trades a lot of the kind of sluggishness that I always felt with the Hurricane, for a little bit less armor, but just a much more enjoyable flight experience. I mean, I remember, Mike, one time I'm not going to get into the fucking ladder shenanigans, but there was that guy at Jumptown who shut us down with distortions, and because of the shape of the Scorpius, we were actually able to glide in and land without exploding. And I think at least you survived that encounter. I don't remember if I did, but because of the ladder animation, but I think you got out.
Yeah, I think I made it out and you didn't.
Yeah.
I'm quick on that Y button when it comes to leaving the Scorpius, because it's a long animation before you get out of that thing.
Dude, you either need 2 ladders on that thing, or they need to make it so you can, like, the quick exit seat is like your character just jumps out, like, with no regard to whether they sprain an ankle.
They also need to separate the ejection if they haven't already. When one person ejects, it shouldn't blow up the ship immediately until the other person ejects.
Yeah, I remember when you first tried that.
Too late, fam.
You were like, does the gunner seat have ejector function? And then you just shot off, and literally, I was like, wow, that's cool. Let me try. And then as I finish that sentence, I just explode.
Yep, you're gone.
Yeah,
but yeah. I mean, objectively, the Scorpius is one of the coolest looking ships. Like
great value X-wing.
Yeah, I mean, it's really well designed. I think it's nice and it fits its role really well.
It's a unique spin on an X-wing. I'll give it that. Like, it's definitely their interpretation of one. You can call it a great value X-wing, but I think it's unique enough that it pretty much stands on its own. The one I really don't understand is the Antares, just because, like, you should have made it so at least either the QED or the EMP was operable by the co-pilot, or the pilot, not the co-pilot.
The gunner. What would be the gunner in the other Scorpius?
Yeah. So, because I think in the Antares, it's the co-pilot controls both, but I think they should have given at least the EMP to the pilot or something, because as a solo ship, like, I know that it's not supposed to be a solo ship. I get it, but its utility is exponentially less by not having that. Although I guess that does kind of make sense, because you can't use the turret on the regular Scorpius at all. So they were probably like, well, in order to get the full functionality of the Antares, you need to have second person, just like in the original Scorpius. However, I think it's a lot less fun for the co-pilot in the Antares, because they're basically just sitting there waiting to push a button,
Yep. That's usually this for most co-pilots.
Yeah. I think for the Antares, they should have given it the same turret mount, but with like one gun, and it's only on the butt.
Or just a set of tiny little pea shooters to at least have something to do,
Size 1 distortions.
That would be great.
Yeah, I mean,
I got to make a distortion build.
I still need to experiment with them. I've been seeing people talking about how they're supposedly a bit better now, and then there's some distortions that are worse now, and it's like, I really don't know. I never
how many
know
times have we screwed each other over by just unloading distortions on each other, and our ship just plummets to the ground?
Well, and it's really great shooting at people on foot with them, because it just throws them all over the place.
I don't know. I don't even know if it damages them, but
no, I think it just tosses them around.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, it's like that guy. It reminds me of that one instance. Like, it fits the definition of overkill, and it reminds me of the time you were sitting in the ballista and you shot that poor dude on a hover quad with a size 7 torpedo.
I remember that.
At some point, like, you just get that prey drive. There's this little thing running in front of you over and over again. Can't help it. But I guess before they are out, I think that I am super stoked for the Zeus and the Galaxy. I feel like those will end up being my favorite ship. But right now, I think I still have to hand it to Crusader with the C1.
It's super
that is your
I feel like it has
driver.
Maybe one too many doors on it. Or maybe too many doors. I like it. I like the way it feels. I think it's a good size. And I really like
room for activities in the back
where the tractor beam is. And I know a lot of people complain about not being able to load boxes in it, but I mean, it's not the easiest thing. But I think I've learned how to do it well enough that I'm okay with it. That's probably my favorite ship right now. And it's kind of my daily, I think. Just kind of depends what day it is. But yeah, I think the C1 is my current favorite ship. Although... And I know you guys know how much I hate Drake in general. Sorry, Drake fanboys. But the cutter, the cutters, I guess Alex said something about guilty pleasures beforehand. There's just something about the cutter and,
it's a little practical ship.
Pisces love, right? But there's something about the cutter that kind of makes it feel a little bit better than the Pisces. It feels more like you're getting stuff done. I guess it's less of a shell than that, compared to the Pisces. But I also have a very special place in my heart for the Cutter, even though I don't really use it very often.
The Cutter, I always feel like the Cutter is the kind of ship that, I mean, it truly, as much as the Hull A, like from the outside especially, looks like a Winnebago, the Cutter, it feels like a Winnebago on the inside. It's like it's not like it has like 80s styling or anything, but it feels like a very utilitarian kind of cozy home. And I actually realized that with the reloading changes that you could feasibly run around the verse. Granted, you'd have like no armor or no storage, but you can feasibly run around the verse with a pistol and a multi-tool and a couple multi-tool attachments in your pocket and 10 or 20 magazines of pistol ammo in your pocket, in your jacket pocket, and play without any armor. And you can actually do that, and I honestly think it's pretty cool, like, because you can effectively go to some of these like outlaw outposts or whatever, or like Maker's Point or Paradise Cove or wherever, and do a couple of these little like clear out missions. And I was doing them in the Cutter just for fun, like without armor or anything, no HUD, because I wasn't wearing a helmet. And I was just, I felt like fucking Han Solo or something. Like I was there to kill out some gangbangers.
Yeah, the Cutter I used the Cutter recently when we were talking about setting up on one of those outposts on Lorville. I remember I put the Cutter right at the edge, and I just started mowing guys down with an SMG. I'm sorry, the LMG. And then I just pulled out the multi-tool, pulled the bodies into the ship, got us stacks of armor, and then I just took off, and I never had to leave my ship once. Cutter just sat there hovering in the air. I mean, I took a couple pot shots here and there, but the shields mostly absorbed it.
I don't know if I was there for that or if I just remember.
No, you guys weren't on yet. I was collecting all the armor for the shenanigans.
Yeah, he was gathering to reveal the secrets. He was gathering up plain clothes so that we could pose as NPCs at one of those things, one of those outposts, so we could steal somebody's stuff.
Emergent gameplay.
That's what he was doing.
And then we had the wipe.
Right, and then we got a sweet wipe. But the Cutter feels, I guess, the most, it's kind of like a down and dirty sort of like get things done ship, and it has a nice sort of like mechanical feel to it that makes it, especially when you're playing alone. Like when you're playing with a group, there really isn't a point to use it, but when you're playing alone, it feels kind of like the right fit for doing things. It's got the little weapon racks and stuff. It's got
a bed, shower.
Yeah, I mean it's ready to go.
Those amazing blast armor.
And yeah, of course, you can shut the side windows and catch a couple Z's in the pilot seat or whatever. Like it is, and it's got fuel for days. Like it's just a really fun ship, kind of an unsung hero.
It does lack severely in like combat performance and all this other stuff, but I think it makes up for it in both character and also just utility, in the sense of like getting around. Like it's quick enough that you can get in and out of places.
It's
a
great
lot,
for
a lot
missions.
faster than running through the 700 doors in the MSR.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, get things done. Good usage for that ship. Well,
I think one of my guilt, like I definitely agree with the Cutter being a guilty pleasure, but I think one of my guilty pleasures is actually the Avenger Titan, believe it or not. I always have a soft spot for that ship just because it was my first one, but oh man, it is in desperate need of an update. Like desperate need of an update. Like
I didn't think that was a secret at all. And I mean, I think there was a point in time where you just would go on and on about how great the Avenger Titan was.
Yeah, but that was also probably back when that was like the only ship I owned, and it would get me out of a lot of sticky situations. It would get me out of a lot of sticky situations. I mean, there were especially back when ERTs were. I mean, I haven't tried them recently, but there was a point where they were particularly deadly for small ships, and you could try and do it just for fun, but there would be points where I would be doing something with the Avenger Titan, and I would come back to the station and just be missing like half the ship, and it would be fine. Like it would still be flying.
Yeah, I think what sets it apart from some of the other smaller ships is having 2 ways to get in and out of it's pretty nice.
Yeah, I just hate the MFD layout, like, because one of them, the middle one, like the middle radar is huge and it obstructs the center MFD, and then unless you have your FOV turned all the way up, you can't even see the center MFD at the bottom all the time. I think the Scorpius suffers from a similar issue in the sense that it just doesn't have enough MFDs, because you need to be able to see. My rule of thumb is a ship needs at least 3, if not 4 MFDs, because you need to be able to see your self status, the enemy status, and at the bare minimum, you also need to be able to see your power triangle. Those are like the 3 cruxes, I would say, of information that you need to be able to see at all times on your MFDs is your self status, target status, and your power triangle. Like, you need to be able to see those at all times. And so when I've seen ships that, I mean, I guess for racing ships it doesn't matter so much, like the M50. But when I see, the Scorpius with only 2 MFDs, I'm like, what the fuck is this, man? Because how, like, this is a combat vessel, and I need to see as much information in front of my eyes as easily as possible, and I don't have access to that. I'm giving up something. It's either the power triangle or my targeting system. Like, I don't have, I can't pick and choose, The cutter, it only has 3 MFDs, but it's not as big of an issue because it's like you're not really supposed to do combat with the cutter anyway.
Yeah,
but
you try and fail very quickly.
Yeah, it's, I don't know.
The guns are strictly
like
for show.
an entirely separate issue with certain ships, though, that I think needs to be rectified. It's like, the MFD placement, I think, needs to be either adjusted, or on some ships like the Scorpius, I think it needs to have like maybe a third MFD that flips out in the middle between the 2 that are already there. Something, because there's unless they're actually planning to reinstate that HUD that would tell you additional ship information, because if they don't do that, then it's an even bigger problem. Like, if they do that, then I'll shut up and I'll stop complaining about it. But if they don't ever do that, then I don't have enough information available to me at a glance, and I need more.
Now, when it comes to the Scorpius, you just gotta point me in the turret with 4 size 3s at the target, and we'll take care of the rest. All right, well, I think that about wraps up this week's episode. Be sure to catch us on the YouTubes or Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We're available pretty much anywhere where you can get a podcast from. You can also find us at heroesofhan.com. You can subscribe and become a supporter of the show, which would be awesome. And look for us next week when we have our next episode. We haven't decided on the topic yet, but it should be good, I would hope. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. Thanks to everyone who's been leaving comments and feedback on the podcast so far. We appreciate it. And we'll see you next time. Thanks, Alex, and thanks, Sean.
Yeah, no problem.
Night.